welcome everybody back to the Insider Galaxy podcast. I'm your host, Eric Hernandez. As always, we got to talk about our last game, which was a not so appreciated fan appreciation night as we lose to FC Dallas 4-1. Wasn't a good game at all. A disaster class of a game. We're going to give our thoughts and our recap about that game. And since that was the final game of the season, that will be our last recap of the podcast, of course. So we're going to give our thoughts, our opinions on that. It should be interesting to talk about that. And of course, we will talk about the off season heading into 2024. We had exit interviews. We had, players saying things, Greg Vanney saying things. And of course, we have a DP spot open as well. Costa has officially left the LA Galaxy. We're going to talk about that as well and the impact of having that DP spot open now. So yeah, a lot of interesting things to talk about. A lot of, things to talk about the future and ahead for next season, which should be an interesting one. But glad you're all here for one last time this season. And of course, glad to have my co-host, of course, with me as always, is LA Galaxy Central. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. It's been a pretty chill last couple of days. Like, the season's over. I think all of us are ready to turn the page on that. The players, the fans, the coaches, everybody, really. And yeah, one last recap of the year. It should be a good episode, and let's get into it.
Yeah, of course. Let's get into it, man. And yeah, chill couple of days. I think the dust has really settled after that disaster class of Saturday, and which, again, we're going to have to talk about it right now. But it has settled a little bit. And but before we get into talking about 2024, let's talk about that FC Dallas game. And like I said, we lost 4-1 at home on Fan Appreciation Night, where we didn't feel so appreciated. Got these cool hats, though. I mean, there was that, I guess. So, there was that for that game. But 4-1, 4 goals in the first half. I mean, it's the same old story, just not good defense. I mean, offensively, we weren't getting anything going either. I mean, just overall, just a terrible team performance. And I mean, in a sense, there was no other way to finish it off, right? With, I guess, one more terrible performance. So, I mean, we dropped the ball on that one. There was no way we were going to play spoiler on that one. FC Dallas makes the playoffs, which I guess is good for them and for their fans. But, I mean, how'd you feel about that game, dude? What were your thoughts about that one?
Yeah, so speaking of the fact that you got this cool hat, I got this really cool jacket, which I really like, and a lot of Galaxy fans really seem to like. And I do agree, this jacket is very nice. So that's one.
It is a fire jacket.
I know, it's very nice. So that's one of the few very positives of 2023. But yeah, as for the game, you really got to give FC Dallas credit though, because they came in and they really took care of business like they needed to. They knew they had to make the playoffs, and that right there is exactly how you put a bad team away like we are this season. You punch them in the face early, you get them down early, you get them discouraged, you get them kind of in the mud, and you put them away. By halftime, that game was over. And in fact, I would say probably in the first 10 minutes, that game was over. And yeah, we've seen the Galaxy in the past on decision day, like against Houston in 2018 and in 2019 when they had a chance to make the playoffs and get a home game, and in 2021 against Minnesota when they had a chance to make the playoffs, not really have that killer instinct. But FC Dallas, that game was just really relentless on us. They showed no mercy, and they really just put us away. And yeah, like you said, that game pretty much sums up the season right there, right? 4 goals against us, terrible defense, and, very little life into the game. Just like this season, we had very little life from week 1 to week 34.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that was a bad game. And like you said, I mean, credit to Dallas. They went into that game knowing what they needed. I mean, we were a terrible team. They went in there knowing hey, we can put these guys away easily, even if it's at their house. And they just did it, and they made it to the playoffs, right? But yeah, I mean, like I said, this was just a sum up of the season and how this was. And yeah, I mean, honestly, there was nothing going for us. I mean, they scored 2 goals within the first 15 minutes of the game. Raheem gets one back later on, which he ends up getting us put in because Aude got injured. But Raheem gets one back for us, and it was a good goal. I mean, you can't lie about that one. It was a good goal by Raheem. But after that, Dallas knew, hey, if we don't put our foot on the gas, we that could cost us the playoffs. They get 2 more goals in that half, and then they just close out the game how they could. And yeah, I mean, we had no life. I mean, everybody was checked out at that point, and why wouldn't you be checked out? It was the last game of the season. You had nothing to play for. Sure, you could have played spoiler, but when you're already, 4 goals down, since you got one back, I guess 3 goals down, it's there's no point of trying to play spoiler. Let's just play the game how you can and just move on. We'll head into 2024. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't good. I mean, the fans didn't enjoy it after the half. They booed them off, and it is what it is. I mean, at the same time, I didn't really feel sad about it. I mean, because that was the season. But at the same time, it just sucks to see a performance like that at home, no matter what.
I mean, yeah, the players were calling it out too. Like even some of the guys that haven't been here a while, like Maya Yoshida and Billy Sharp, they were saying in the press conference that the effort wasn't acceptable. That just like, I don't know, they didn't really understand what was going on. They were not very happy about it, and it sounds like they both want to come back next season and try to make it right. But yeah, that game was just not the way to end off. But you did kind of expect it though, right? With all the players the Galaxy have out and Dallas having their full strength 11. Even with our full strength 11, we've always struggled against Dallas, and yeah, that game was no different. And Dallas just put us away quickly, and that game was over just in a flash, really.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And yeah, we've always had trouble with Dallas. Yeah, in fact, I was, talking about that before the pregame and stuff like that, like with fans like and stuff, and they were just like, yeah, like we don't play well against Dallas. It's normally a tough challenge for us. And yeah, I mean, this was another tough challenge, but again, 4-1 at home, it's just, it's unacceptable but at the same time, it's like you're not too sad about it because at the end of the day, you're kind of not happy, but like at least kind of relieved that the season's over. It's like great, we don't have to, feel the pain anymore, or at least for right now, you don't have to feel the pain anymore, and just close this chapter, and we open a new one with 2024. But yeah, I mean, honestly, just there's really not much you can say, just other than this was a bad performance, regardless of whether you had something to play for or not. But it is what it is, and we move on, I guess. But um, but yeah, I mean, I guess we can kind of talk about players, unless you had any other points about the game in general. No. All right, let's talk about players for a bit. So when it came to your starting 11 in the defense, or at least your starting defense, you had Mikovic starting. You had Auda starting at left back. You had, I believe, I forgot who you started at right back, but I know your center backs was Yoshida, and you had Alfaro in. I
You
think you had
forgot who
Leardam
started.
as a right
Yeah,
back.
I was about to say you forgot how he started. Like he played terribly. I mean, I'll
No,
just get
it
the
was funny
spoiler.
because I checked the lineup right before, and I just completely forgot who played right back. But yeah, it was Leardam who started, right? If I'm correct, yeah. So you had Leardam starting. So yeah, I mean that defense, you did have Auda leaving early around like the 18th or like 17th minute around there. But defense, I mean, what can you really talk about it? I mean, it was pretty bad. But I mean, what are your thoughts about the defense? How'd you feel about that one?
Yeah, I mean, thank God I'm finally done watching them for this year because I think this is actually tied for the worst defense in club history. Or if it's not, it's actually passed it by like a goal or two because I remember seeing a tweet at some point, like right after the game, that like the Galaxy defense officially got tied for the worst defense in club history. But I think I read that tweet at like halftime though, so maybe it could have gone worse, or maybe they posted that story like before you can see the fourth goal. So it might even be the worst defense in club history. But if
I,
not, I know it's
I
guaranteed to be tied. Here, go ahead.
I, I was gonna say, I believe it was one, like once the second goal happened, they were 2 goals away from tying the worst defense, and then
Oh,
we
okay.
ended up tying. I think we tied with 2017, right? I think that was the worst
No,
defense. So
I think it
it,
was a different year actually. I think we actually passed
I think it
2017
was
a couple
20.
different.
I think it was 2017 though. I think we
I
tied
want to
with,
check
or
here.
maybe I know I was watching the exit interviews, and I think they were talking about it with Maya Yoshida, and then they said it was 2017,
Okay.
or I don't remember if it's Maya Yoshida or not. But point is, in one of the exit interviews, they mentioned about it, and
Okay,
it
we're
was
bad. Like let's just put it that way.
yeah.
We're not very
Yeah,
good at
we're bad.
defense.
Point is, it was if we're getting close to being one of the worst defenses in history, then
It was
that
not good.
tells you something.
Yeah, that
But
game.
anyways, yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah,
game really showed it, and I'm surprised you forgot Leardam started because that guy was just, he was abysmal. He was terrible with Leardam. I don't know what he was doing out there, really. I mean, it got so bad, I was just wanting Cuevas to play, but I think he was on international duty, wasn't he? So, with the youth national team.
yes, he was.
Yeah, I mean, you know it's bad when I want Cuevas to play, and you know what I think about Cuevas, so it's like Leardam, my God, dude. And yeah, the rest of the defense just, not great. Even Julian when he played the first like 15 minutes, not great, even though I've been a fan of him, it's not great at all. And Raheem, when he came on, showed some fight, but defensively, we know he struggles in that part and wasn't very good either. I think Mikovic was just fine. I don't think Bond in there would have made any difference, and Alfaro was just okay too. But I mean, Leardam dropped an absolute stinker, and it was just like that was really bad to watch. But I'm not surprised it's been like this all year, and we need some major reinforcements and health in the defense next season.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, defense gonna have to change regardless going into next season. But yeah, I mean, this defense was just bad. And you know what was the difference between like, well, at least from this performance and other ones? Like at other performances, we at least like make these little mistakes and we shoot ourselves in the foot, which results in bad results. But like for this one, it was just bad defense. Like we weren't doing anything. We were ball watching a lot. We got caught a lot, and it was just like I don't know. It just really wasn't good defense
We got cooked.
whatsoever. Yeah, like we really were cooked. I don't know if you saw. I think it was like FC Dallas. They were talking about the first goal. That I think it was on their social media, and I forget who scored the goal. But point is, they were talking about the play, and they said like, hey, like that defense like just gave us an opening to give that through ball, and it was like Swiss cheese, and
They
like
did
that
say
was
that, yeah.
basically it. Yeah, that basically was it. It was Swiss cheese. We were giving them everything that we could. It was just bad positioning, bad defending whatsoever. And again, like although bad defending is bad defending, at least the other ones it was just like we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot. This one was just like, yeah, we didn't have anything going for us in
I
that
thought that first
part.
goal was offside actually when I first saw it, but then looking back at it, it's like, yeah, it was not offside. But
No,
but
yeah,
still, though,
that was a
yeah.
good.
Yeah, the defense was
Yeah,
really bad, and we talk about the same problems every single week, right? Like they happened again. We concede in the first minutes of the game, and we concede right before halftime. It's like, every single week, and as it keeps on happening, like, yeah, I understand we don't have the players, but eventually I got to look at the coach for not getting these guys prepared and actually correcting some of these mistakes. It's like, oh, dude, come on. Like every single week this is happening, and when is it going to end?
I mean, obviously Vanny is a topic of conversation in general, but of course, like I mean, yeah, like people say, like Vanny's a defensive guy, he's a defensive coach. How come there isn't, good defense, right? But I will still say, like the lack of, I guess, personnel and players that we had, it was just, kind of still affected us, right? Like, I mean, if you tell some guy to fix your tire and you give him a rusty screwdriver, what do you expect him to do? Like, I don't think you expect him to fix your tire, right? But I'm not saying that that's what Vanny had to deal with, but like to a certain extent, like,
Well, it
you
is
know,
actually. I think the defense is about with a rusty screwdriver this year.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you could say that as well. But like, still though, like Vanny didn't have the right guys to work with, right? Like, you can, like, sure, Vanny's a defensive coach and he has to have a good, defensive strategy. But at the same time, it's like with what we had, it's like, could you really make a good defensive strategy? I don't think so. Like, I really don't think you could have.
Yeah, I don't think even Pep Guardiola can fix this defense right now. It's pretty
Yeah, I
bad
don't.
some of the personnel they have. But to be fair, like it's not their main personnel, but they do need to bring some guys in.
Yeah, obviously injuries affected it, so it's like, yeah, like that's why we didn't have the good personnel. But yeah, I mean, I don't think any coach should really have success, whether it's Pep Guardiola or Jose Mourinho or Ancelotti, whoever. Like, really, right? It's like I don't think anybody would really be able to fix that. So I don't really blame Vanny in that aspect. Like, yes, strategy wise, he should be better defensively, but again, if you don't have the right pieces, you're just not gonna have good defense at all. But anyways, you have any other points with defense, or you want to move on into midfield?
Thank God I'm done watching them.
Yeah, I mean, thank God we're done watching it. Yeah, pretty bad defense. But
Very bad.
let's go into the midfield. Yeah, let's go into the midfield, which I don't think they really did that well either. Midfield, of course, you did have a 4-4-2 formation in this one. Forgot to mention that in the beginning. But you're in your midfield. You had Fagundes, you had Surreal in the middle. I guess, I mean, although technically this more to the offense, but you did have Tyler Boyd and Costa on the wings. But yeah, I mean, the midfield. How'd you feel about that one? What were your thoughts about it?
Yeah, pretty much non-existent, like we've talked about the last couple of weeks. Dallas just easily ran through them, and yeah, it was kind of easy. Like the defense and midfield was just Swiss cheese, holes everywhere. Just no effort. It's just easy to go by. It's just not difficult. I don't really know how else to put it. It's just very easy for the opposing team, and yeah, like we talked about with the defense, it's not our starting midfield. It's not what the best you'd expect it to be, and it's not the formation we usually play. But still, just no, didn't really offer anything for us, and that's just kind of the way it was, really.
Yeah, basically, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, just wasn't there. I mean, really wasn't there for anybody tonight, right? Or for that game, right? But midfield as well just wasn't there. You did see Ricky Puig come in off on as a sub, which was I don't know
Very
why.
poor decision, yeah. Very
Yeah,
poor.
I don't understand the reasoning behind that. Yes, I understand Ricky Puig is a competitor, which we have acknowledged that before. But at least we would say that when there was something to compete for, there's nothing to compete for in this instance. Yeah, like I mean, this was. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand it. Like it really didn't make sense. And also, it happened when we were already down 4-1. So it's like, why would you bring in Ricky Puig at this point? But even then, Ricky comes on, doesn't really make much of a difference either. I mean, he hasn't played for a few weeks, so he's rusty and not in full game shape either. So it's like, yeah, I don't understand what the decision was to put him in, but yeah, I mean, even then, like even with Ricky in, the midfield did not look better at all.
I mean, I think the Galaxy as a team looked a little better when Ricky Puig came on, but I agree with the other point. Like, why did Ricky Puig even play? Why was he available to play? That just made no sense to me when I saw that. Even in the press conference, Vanny said Ricky Puig is gonna play. I'm like, why? Like, what is the point in that? It's like he's just coming off like a pretty serious ankle injury, and yeah, it doesn't make sense to bring him in for a meaningless game. And what if he got injured, like even worse, and misses some of the start next season? It's like, what would we think about that then? And it's just like, well, I don't know why they do that. That really made no sense to me.
Yeah, and there were some instances where Dallas was really getting like I guess rough with Ricky, and I kind of like got scared, like not scared but worried a little bit. That I was like, man, I hope this guy doesn't get injured, and then we blow his season next year, right? But luckily nothing happened to Ricky. But again, really poor decision to put him in, and again, like I don't really think he did much. I mean, sure they might looked a little better, but it wasn't enough to make a comeback or anything, right? So it's like the decision of putting in Ricky was just I don't know. It just wasn't right to me. But luckily he's okay, and I guess he finished off his season playing, I guess, instead of just being shut down. But yeah, I mean, still though, wouldn't didn't like the decision whatsoever. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything much on else on the midfield unless you had any other points as well. No. All right, let's talk about the offense then. Offense again also did not do anything. You had Billy Sharp and Dejan as your starting two strikers, and yeah, I mean those guys didn't really have much. Sure, they had some opportunities. I think Dejan had like a header that hit the post like around like the 15th minute, maybe maybe it was a little after, but yeah, Dejan
Wasn't
had
it
a,
way
had a,
earlier though? Wasn't that to tie the game 1-1? I think.
yeah, it might have been earlier actually. It might have been like around like the 10th minute maybe or something like that. But yeah, I mean Dejan had one opportunity. That's like the only one that I really saw really from him and Sharp, and yeah, I mean or at least from what I remember. But yeah, I mean for those two didn't really do much on that. But yeah, I mean how'd you feel about those two guys up top?
I mean, we can just talk about the offense as a whole. If Boyd and Costa and all those guys just non-existent again. The whole team was non-existent. They were just there just to collect a check, really. And I can't really blame them. It's like the season's done. You don't really have the pieces to compete against this Dallas team at all. So, I mean, they showed up. They finished it off. But yeah, non-existent. It wasn't there. It's lacking quality for sure. Both of them did not work very well together, Joveljic and Sharp, which was a little disappointing to see. The wingers like Costa and Boyd didn't really offer that much either. But I think the effort was okay, but yeah, there just wasn't enough for us at all, and you really saw it throughout the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, definitely didn't really see much in this game. Yeah, I mean, like in this game, just in general, you didn't really see much good things, like other than maybe the effort on Raheem's goal, which like that's like like one of the only positives from the game. Other than that, nobody really provided much. I guess Costa still had some good set pieces, but even then, like there was really nothing much we can do in this game. And yeah, like you said, they were just there to collect the check, get your game check, and just move on. Like that was just basically it when you're down for one, and you can't blame the players for that, right? Like once you're at that position with nothing to play for, it's let's just end it and let's go. Let's leave from here. Again, I don't think the fans really appreciated that, but at the end of the day, it's like it is what it is. But yeah, pretty terrible game in general. But I don't know. I don't think you felt really much appreciated on fan appreciation night. I mean, unless you did for some reason. But
No, not really. No, I did not enjoy watching that at all, and yeah, I'm happy it's finally over and it's time to move on now.
yeah, I mean, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I guess the other good thing was that like I did get to see some friends, got to hang out with friends in this game and stuff like that. I actually got recognized at the tailgate, which is pretty cool. Shout out to Andrew, who said hi to me during the tailgate. So yeah, thank you for watching. If you're watching this as well, so yeah, I mean that was the first time I got recognized at a game. I don't think I've ever had that before. I don't know if you've ever gotten recognized, especially now since like we do this video podcast and stuff like that. But that was the first time I got recognized.
Not really recognized, but I've met other MLS accounts before where we just met before, and it was pretty cool. So I've met other people, but like no, not like recognized. No, not really.
Yeah, it was kind of weird too, because like I was with, of course, I was with Eli Lesser, the guy who runs This Week in MLS. I was with him at the tailgate, and I was with him in a group, and I'm the one who got stopped. And I was like, oh, that's kind of weird, like how the guy who has like thousands of followers on social media got or not ignored, but at least they didn't talk to him, they talked to me, and like I don't know, that was pretty cool. Again, shout out to Andrew for saying hi to me and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I guess that was the only good positives about the game, just being together with the Galaxy community and just turning the new page on that. So, I mean, I guess that was the good thing about the game.
I mean, I'll say one more thing though. Don't you wish the Galaxy would have that killer instinct to put a game away? Like, not even just this season, but in the past, like Dallas had this game. Like, where was that for the Galaxy in like 2018, 2019? We were playing a bad Houston team who was far out of the playoffs, and we had something to play for. Why can't we put a team away like that? Like that's what I want our organization to be like.
I will say they did do that last year when we had decision day.
Okay, but that's
Although
like
we
one out
didn't.
of four times though.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying at
It's not.
least last year. But also we were in the playoffs at that point. But we did put away a bad Houston team to get home field advantage in the playoffs last year, which is a good thing. But yeah, I mean, yeah, we need more of that killer instinct, right? But at the same time, like, how can you have a killer instinct? Well, I mean, I guess in this situation, like, no one really has the effort and fight when you don't have anything to play. But even when you did have something to play for, I don't think this team did have that killer instinct. And you're right. I think they should have that instinct no matter what. But there is a certain point in time where you kind of like don't have it in you, especially when games like this where you're losing 4-1 and stuff like that. And like for example, like the Minnesota game a couple weeks ago, like that was 5-2, and they had something to play for, and they didn't have that instinct. It was like, like at the same time, you can't blame them at that point. But I mean, I guess like they do need to be more aggressive in a sense, but I don't know. There is a certain point where you can't be that aggressive because you just don't have it in you.
I mean, yeah, we'll talk about the season in a bit, but there's definitely a lot of points this year where we either had a lead or like we couldn't put a game away or I mean anything really. Like there's been a lot of points where we've gone down a goal, we haven't fought back, or we had a lead, we lost the lead, or the final 10 minutes and stoppage time. So it's just like we really have to put a team away and we really have to put a game away, and it's just been a massive issue, really, not only this year, but like even in previous years. I think we only won like two games under Vanny when we conceded the first goal, which has been a lot of time. So it's like, I don't know, like certain things just remain consistent and they need to change eventually to get better.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. We got there's a lot of things to change, for sure. Which we will have a lot of things to change this off season, for sure with players and I guess we already have personnel that's already been changed, like the front office and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, obviously there's going to be a lot of change this season. Some people expected some change in some parts where we didn't see change, and of course we can talk about that right now. I guess we could move on into stuff like that. I don't know if you have any other points about the final game of the season, but yeah, I mean, I guess it's over, right? Like, do you have any other final thoughts about it?
Yeah, like what you said, happily it's over, and yeah, time to move on from that now.
Yeah, definitely for sure. This is a season to forget. That's for sure. Like I don't know. It wasn't memorable. But anyways, I guess now that we close into 2023, staying in 13th place the whole season, didn't move a single spot.
I
Now
mean,
that
I'll add
that's a
something though, like what you just said. I'll add on to that. Isn't like this one of the most disappointing seasons in club history? Because even the years we were bad, like in 2017 and in 2020, at one point in the season we were fourth in the West, fifth in the West. Like even in those seasons, we had a stretch of games in like the springtime where we were playing super well, or in 2020 in the fall time where we were winning like four games in a row. Or in 2017 we won like I think five games in a row or four games in a row. We were like fourth or fifth in the West. Like there is something to be optimistic about, something to at least be happy about at some week in the season. For 2023, it's like week one, 14th place, week 34, 13th place, did not move up one time. Like, not even a little bit of life at one point in the season, really. Like, sure, maybe we had a little bit of life when we beat San Jose and we were on that, like, 5 game unbeaten streak with 4 wins, but other than that little point, even then, we were still, like, bottom of the table. It's like, there's been nothing to really, wrap your head around or get excited about, like, all year, which is very disappointing, even compared to those other bad seasons.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it was really disappointing in that aspect because I don't think it was necessarily because yeah, you're right. Like we did have a stretch where we were playing good. We beat LAFC in the Rose Bowl. We beat Philadelphia Union like 3-1 at home, which was pretty big because they're a good team. We ended up beating San Jose or we ended up sweeping San Jose, or not sweeping San Jose, but like not losing to San Jose this season, right? So it's like you had like good moments in there, but in the standings, like you just didn't see anything progress, which was yeah, that was the disappointing part. But that goes to show how, and we said this, that just goes to show like how big of a hole it was in the beginning with the boycotts, and and the players even said it in these exit interviews and like post pressers. They were like, yeah, like it did affect us. Like this was, we just wish that we had the fortress that we were hoping for, especially coming off a good season like it was in 2022. So it's like, yeah, like I mean, it's disappointing because a lot of things happened, and it's disappointing in that fact, and just the fact that we didn't show it in the standings. Like, yeah, sure, we had some good moments because, like, it was funny. I think, like, someone even said it. Like, I guess the only thing that we can really remember from the season was just the Rose Bowl game because it was such a massive event and stuff like that. But that's literally the only thing that we can say that like, yeah, that was fun this season.
Well, for me,
You
San
know?
Jose too, going 3 games unbeaten versus San Jose of 2 wins is always really good in a rivalry game. But other than that, yeah, I agree. There's not really much to look upon.
Right, exactly. So it's like there's nothing much really you can look into this. But yeah, I mean it's disappointing in that aspect. Yeah, because it was like we didn't really see anything in the standings. Honestly, yeah, I mean I could probably agree that this was probably one of the most disappointing seasons I've seen like ever, like from the Galaxy team, right? Like maybe I don't know if you felt the same way, but like to me, like I felt like this was one of the most I've seen in like at all.
Yeah, I agree. Really, it's because what I said earlier about the lack of belief, the lack of really just anything really happening for us all year. We didn't really move up in the standings at all. So what was there to ever be excited about?
Yeah, I mean, really nothing much to be excited about, but yeah, I mean, it's disappointing. Really is disappointing. To go through this whole season and how it was, and you know what, like at least some bad seasons, like you said, like there was roller coasters, right? There was times where we were really had really good highs and we had like really bad lows, and this one was just like low, maybe a little bit of high, and then it just went low again, right? So it's like, yeah, it was a pretty disappointing season, what for sure. Um, yeah. But anyways, I think we could move on into going talking about the off season, right? Let's like we said, let's move from 2023. Let's forget about this season. Let's talk a bit about 2024 and what we can expect at least from right now with the off season starting, right?
You want to read off all the contracts expiring? We can talk about if we want to bring them back or not. Or I don't know if you have them or not.
I do have them available and ready to go,
Awesome.
which is something I was gonna talk about. But yeah, like we said, we have 17 contracts expiring. Of course, some of these players do have options, so there is going to be some players that are going to probably come back. There's some players that are out of contract in general that we're gonna probably bring back, and there's gonna be a lot of guys that we're definitely gonna let go, right? Which we'll talk about one person who already has been let go, right? Let's look at these contracts. So let's start off with the loans. You have Caligari and Mikovic, whose loans are expiring this season or have expired now. And then when it comes to contracts expiring, you have Klinsmann, you have Sharp, Leardom, Cáceres, Gino Vivi, Judd, Aguirre, Saldana, Uri Rosell, Tony Alfaro, Tyler Boyd, Chicharito, Michael Barrios, Douglas Costa, and Edwin Cerrillo. So, yeah, those are all the contracts that are up after the season. A lot of players. And like I said, there's going to be some players that we expect to return, and there's going to be some players that we're probably not going to see in a Galaxy uniform. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about who I guess we want. Should we talk about who we expect to leave, or do you want to start off with who we want back?
Let's just go through all of them though and say yes or no if we want back and give a little explanation. It doesn't have to be that long, really.
All right, let's go for it. All right. Again, we'll start off with the loans first. Caligari, Mikovic, or let's start off with Caligari. Definitely for sure. I think that's a player you're gonna have to think about bringing back. But regarding the injury and the surgery that he had, I don't know if that's going to affect the deal. I know we've talked about that, but definitely for sure you want Caligari back, and I think you would agree with that, right?
Yeah, definitely. Caligari is a player I really like. I think he's done a great job this year and really started to progress. But you're right, that injury does play a really big factor for me because, if we do bring Caligari back, it's like we're going to go out and trade for a right back because we're not going to trust Cuevas to be our starter for, like 70% of the year. And we're not going to certainly not trust Leardom to be our starter for 70% of the year if we bring him back. So, if you bring Caligari back, that means you have to trade for another right back that you can put in there for a majority of the season. But yeah, it is tough though because think about it. It's like if Caligari goes back to Brazil, he can take all the time in the world. His club Fluminense right now, or however you pronounce it, is in the Libertadores Cup final against Boca Juniors. So I mean, not to say Caligari is not a good player, but that club really doesn't really need him as much as the Galaxy do. They can afford to take their time with him. And does Caligari really trust the medical staff of the LA Galaxy to get him right? It's like it's probably pretty difficult with the season they just had, but. Yeah, if Caligari's available and wants to come back, I'd love to have him back, but his injury is a big concern, and if Caligari does come back, we got to find a guy to bring in for him for a majority of the season because he tore his ACL, or I think in like September, so that's like a 9 month injury, 10 months. It's like he's gonna be out till the summertime at least, or maybe even early fall. So yeah, it's a difficult situation for sure.
I don't think it'll be up to early fall, especially because he's a young
Maybe
player, right?
summertime. Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
summertime. I'd say.
yeah, definitely. He's a young player too, right? So I think him possibly even coming back a little bit earlier than the summertime could be a possibility. Again, depending on how he
Definitely not
recovers.
preseason though.
No, definitely not before season. This is going to be into the season, right? So it's like, but if we bring Caligari back, And depending how his recovery goes, it could be early summertime, maybe a little bit late in the spring. Who knows, right? But definitely Calegari is a guy that we want to see back. And again, but that injury is going to play a factor regarding whether you want to buy him or loan him out again. And what is Fluminense going to say? Like, hey, like this guy got injured here. Like now we want more money or whatever the case may be, right? Like the deal is going to be interesting to see how they bring him back. And yeah, I mean, I guess you do have to go out for another right back. Even if you do trust Cuevas to be your starter, I think you got to have another good, solid, um, you know, right back for the time being. But yeah, definitely for sure, Calegari's a player that I'd want to see back next season. Now let's go into Mikovic for the loans. Yeah, I mean, didn't see much of Mikovic. There were some good things that we saw from Mikovic when he had his time as a starter, but yeah, I mean, what do you feel about that one? Do you think that's a player we can possibly bring back?
Yeah, actually, I'm extremely high on Mikovic. He showed me a lot of really good things in Leagues Cup and even some of his starts in MLS. I think he's a really good player. It looks like Jonathan Klinsman's going to be off the team now. He hasn't been on the bench for a while. And yeah, I think Jonathan Bond needs some pressure for him applied to his job because sometimes Jonathan Bond's a little bit too casual. We saw this season it wasn't great for him. And I feel like he was too comfortable at times. And having Mikovic back there playing well in spurts he did play with the Galaxy, I think would be a great thing for him. And I think he's a good backup keeper too. He has a lot of potential. So yeah, absolutely, I would bring him back.
Yeah, another young player too. I think he's like 22, 23. So like
I think he
another
might be
young
younger
player.
actually.
Yeah, it might be 21, 20. No, maybe not 20. He might be 21 through 23, like around that age. The
Yeah.
point is still a young player. Did like we said, he did have some good spots, and yeah, I agree that if you bring Mikovic and you don't bring Klinsman back, like I think there's going to be a big goalkeeper battle, right? Like sure, you can say Bond had an injury in the beginning of the season and stuff like that, but there were moments where Bond just wasn't good, and yeah, you're right. Maybe he was a little too comfortable knowing that he was going to be the starter, and applying that pressure is going to not only just help Mikovic, but also possibly help Bond, right, to get his form back. So I think bringing in a young keeper like Mikovic could be a good thing for the Galaxy. And again, we'll see how his goes. And I think he does have that option. We have an option to buy him. So like, if we do buy him, I think that's a good thing for the team. And again, young player. And if he does win the battle, like let's see what we can do. And especially with hopefully a better reinforced defense, he might even be just even better. Might be just better for the team overall, right? So we'll,
I
we'll
actually
see
think
how
he
it
does
goes.
have a good chance to be a starter because with the Galaxy, we're a team that really likes to play out of the back, and Mikovic's distribution for a young player out of the back is seriously, it's great. It's one of the best I've seen from a young goalkeeper. I think he has a lot to offer. He's a good shot stopper too, so I don't think Mikovic can just come back to be the back, but I think he really has an opportunity to push for that starting spot if things go right for him.
Right, definitely, and much better distribution to Bond than Bond for sure. And like you said, we like to play out in the back, and I think Mikovic that's probably one of his biggest traits, right? Is just playing out from the back. So yeah, Mikovic should be interesting. I would hope he comes back, and if he does, that'll be interesting to see that goalkeeper battle. All right. Now let's talk about contracts, the players whose contracts are expiring. First we already talked about Klinsman, but first one up, Klinsman. Yeah, don't expect it to be back. Saw on IG, he said he put thank you LA. Kind of looked like a thank you post already and a goodbye post. So yeah, I don't expect Klinsman to come back, and I don't think you do either, right?
No, I do not.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I don't expect him to come back. And, Klinsman has some of his moments. I thank him for his services, but yeah, I mean, even as a backup, like we said, if Mikovic comes back, that's going to, I just don't see having him have that chance, right? And he hasn't played or hasn't even been in the bench or anything for the past few weeks. So that kind of tells you that his time with the Galaxy is over. But anyways, yeah, so that was Klinsman. Billy Sharp, interesting one because he did score 6 goals with the Galaxy at his time here. Saw some good things from Billy Sharp. Of course, in the last few weeks, you didn't see much, but still, though, Billy Sharp, 37-year-old, um, you know, old on the older side, but did produce some things for the Galaxy. Is this a player you want to see back? Is this a player that you think the Galaxy should consider?
Yeah, absolutely. Because of two reasons. One, I really think we need him and Yoshida's presence in the locker room and on the field for a full preseason. I think that would do, great things for us. Even though we talked about like sometimes we're not mentally the strongest team, where we go down early, we don't come back, or just things don't go our way, and we don't know how to react to it. I think Billy Sharp and Yoshida are great guys for that. And another thing is Billy Sharp can show he can start. Like he scored a hat trick as a starter before, and he scored other goals as a starter before too, or even coming off the bench. So yeah, which Dan Joveljic could not do as a starter. Obviously, he was not very good as a starter. So yeah, to have a proven striker who has great leadership, who can start games for you when you need to, it's like yeah, you absolutely have to bring him back for one more year. I think it's an important piece to bring back.
Yeah, definitely for sure. I think it all depends on what we do in the striker position. Just in general, like of course, I think Dejan is expected to be back next year, or at least for right now. If Chicharito leaves, who do we bring in that regards and stuff like that. But Billy Sharp, yeah, like I think the leadership aspect is what's really good for Billy Sharp. And again, also his play as well. Like we said, he scored a hat trick as a starter in MLS as a 37-year-old, right? Like that's insane. And yeah, Billy Sharp has that leadership. He's that experienced guy and just a guy that everybody respects, right? We've talked about that when he came in. He was just a respectable guy. And I think he is that guy, and we need that leadership and that veteranship within the locker room. So yeah, I think Billy Sharp should be interesting. I don't know if he will be back. I don't know if that is a possibility, but like still though, like I think those aspects are good for the Galaxy if they do bring him back. So I would like to see him back if that's the case. Um, but yeah, that's Billy Sharp. Kelvin Leerdam. I mean, we just talked about his performance in this last game wasn't good. Leerdam, really, just we got him for the midfield. He played a lot of defensive, positions during his time here. Again, did had some moments where he, for what we're asking him for, but I don't think Leerdam is like a guy that we really need, right? So you don't expect. I'm pretty sure you don't expect Leerdam to be back, but yeah, I mean, Kelvin Leerdam, would you want him back? I mean, what's your thoughts about him?
Yeah, I would not want him back, especially after what I saw last game against Dallas. He was not very good, and even just these last couple of weeks, I think he's really struggled too. And yeah, he's getting up there in age. I think he's 33 years old right now, and I think we need to get younger at that right back position. If Caligari comes back, we need to find a replacement for Leon, who's a little bit younger too. Not like Cuevas young, but like maybe like 24, 25 years old to put in there. So yeah, I think it's time to move on from Leerdam. I do appreciate some of the things he's done and how he stepped up, but yeah, it's time to move on.
Yeah, definitely for sure. I agree. Don't expect him to be back, and honestly, not again. I don't think I'd want him back either. But yeah. Next, Martin Cáceres. This is going to be interesting. Signs are leading that he's most likely not going to come back, but Martin Cáceres was crucial, especially in that 2022 season. Unfortunate that he got an injury this season, but yeah, Martin Cáceres was that leadership guy again. Like Maya Yoshida, had a lot of World Cups in his belt, has played with a lot of different clubs, and has been that leader, right? Martin Cáceres has been that guy, but again, on the older side, coming off a pretty harsh injury. Yeah, I mean, as much as I would say I would like to have him back, I don't think he is going to come back, and I think the Galaxy look like they want to move on from him. But what do you think about Martin? Do you think we should bring him back, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would not bring him back. Like when Yoshida came in here, that's the moment I thought Martin Caceres was probably going to leave this offseason. And I still think that right now Yoshida's kind of that new veteran leadership center back who played in a lot of places and is a very well respected player. And yeah, it looks like Caceres is going to be gone probably.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but you know what? I still thank him for the moments. He had some good moments, and yeah, it is unfortunate, but you know what? I just don't see him coming back, and I think the signs are just leading to him not returning. So yeah, it is unfortunate, but it is what it is regarding to Martin Cáceres. Uh, you know what? I would want to go one on one or like keep going one by one, but I do kind of want to bunch these guys in a group because it's kind of the same situation. You do have Gino Vivi, Preston Judd, Daniel Aguirre, and Saldana. A lot of these guys played in G2 or were just not on the bench. I think all these guys have options on them. Again, we could go one by one, but just kind of just want to bunch them up in the group here. Yeah, I mean, I kind of expect all those four guys to be back. Maybe I don't know. Maybe not Preston Judd, considering just again the striker position and what we do there. But you know, for the most part, I do expect some of these guys to be back, whether they don't play with the first team or not. But yeah, I mean, what do you expect from those guys? Do you think you want these guys back? I mean, some of these guys are young, but yeah, what do you expect from them?
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of surprised you said that because I don't think any of them are going to come back. Maybe besides Daniel Gurr, and even then, I'm still kind of questioning that because I have a different idea that we can use at that midfield position, but which I'll mention later. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think any of those guys are going to come back. If they do come back, I think they're second team players. And do they really want that, or would they rather pursue an MLS contract with an MLS club to be a substitute? It's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think any of them might actually come back. I'm surprised you said that, but yeah, honestly, if they didn't come back, I wouldn't really care that much. I don't think they were that big contributors anyway, but we'll see what happens with them.
No, yeah, definitely for sure. Like I said, like if they come back, they're either going to be on G2 or they're not going to have that much playing time. I mean, the only guy really is just Daniel Aguirre, like you said, like because he's had some starts and maybe that's the most likely I see him coming back. And again, maybe not even on a long contract, just maybe another 1 or 2 years with an option. But like still though, it's like I don't expect other than that I don't know if I see these guys being big contributors even if they come back. So it's going to be interesting to see for sure. But yeah, those guys were just sort of in the same situation at this point. Again, I think all those guys do have options, so we'll see which ones they pick up. All right, next one, Uri Russell. This one was a mixed one because again, Uri Russell didn't do much, but he did enough for what we're asking him for when when Mark Delgado went down and Brugman went down at one point, right? So Uri Russell again was that just another veteran guy just to have him as a backup. But yeah, I mean, how do you feel about Uri Russell? Do you think he's going to come back? I don't know if he has an option or not, to be honest.
Yeah, I do not think he's going to come back, and I don't really want him back either. I feel like Uri Rousseau is just the type of guy we brought in to have a body in there early in the season. We were kind of short on players with the transfer window, so it's kind of a guy you just brought in there. But yeah, I think this team does need a little bit more quality in that midfield. He's done an okay job for a veteran player, but not really someone we're going to really stick with. And yeah, if he does leave, I appreciate his time here, but I do think it is time to kind of part ways with him.
Yeah, definitely. Again, I don't know if he has an option or not. I wouldn't be surprised if Vanny brings him back, but I don't, again, it really just depends on what we do on that midfield and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, again, Uri Russell, I mean, did good for what we were asking him for, but again, what just more for that, having that veteran experience side, for the Galaxy, really nothing much there. But if he comes back, I guess, but if not, I wouldn't be too disappointed on that either. Next, Tony Alfaro. I don't think he has an option on this one. I think he just straight up is like a free agent. But Tony Alfaro again had some moments in this season, especially in Leagues Cup. I think that's where we saw a lot of him. But again, Tony Alfaro, center back, definitely not going to be a starter. Going to be in the depth chart. But how do you feel about Tony Alfaro? Do you want him back, or do you think it's time to part ways?
Yeah, I like him back. I think he's a good depth piece to have.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he had some good moments. Another experienced guy in MLS, so it's not bad to keep him. So I wouldn't mind if you keep Tony Alfaro there, especially in the defense. Right, we got to get some guys in there to really enforce that. And again, I think he was one of those, maybe not bright pieces, but good pieces to have during this pretty bad, defensive team. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing Tony Alfaro back for sure. Next, Tyler Boyd. I think this one's a no-brainer. I think this is like 100% we should try to bring him back, like even if I know he's probably going to get a better contract, not being paid like the minimum like he was this season, going to get more money. I think he's worth the money. He was a very good contributor. We talked about him being this, a good X factor, right? And, it's just like Tyler Boyd had a good season. We had a lot of great moments, and this is definitely a player you should bring back, and I expect to be back next season.
Absolutely. He's made it very clear he wants to come back. He really appreciates what the club has done for him in his career. He's probably played the best at his career at this spot right now. And yeah, I really hope to have him back. Absolute warrior this season. He played through a torn quad and a broken hand when we were struggling too. Always there for us. One of the only few players who played every single game for us. Just, nothing but respect for Tyler Boyd. Great player, great personality. Always wants to work hard, wants to be here. So absolutely bring him back and give him the race.
Yeah, definitely. He's going to get money. He's going to get paid. And again, if the Galaxy let him go, that's just going to be a big mistake. Like I just don't, I don't see the Galaxy not going back for Tyler Boyd, and I expect him to be back.
Yeah, sorry. So they got rid of Efrain Alvarez. I'm expecting Tyler Boyd to get sort of that Efrain Alvarez's contract, that sort of like high TAM money contract, which I think is very fair for him with the way he played.
Yeah, definitely. He's earned it. Like, and that's the thing about contracts. It's about, what have you done for me lately, right? And I think lately, obviously, Tyler Boyd was a really good player and really special for this team. So, yeah, definitely he's going to get paid, next season. And again, I expect him to be back. And I mean, again, I think everybody would love him for him to come back. So,
Tyler Boyd for me is one of those players who deserves a better team around him because he really does everything for this club and he deserves to have winning success.
Yeah, I mean he does. Like I mean he really does a lot for this team and he did. And again, what's so great about Tyler Boyd, especially coming into the season, like we were talking about it last preseason, right? Like, oh, like this player who's only played like one half within 9 months. Like, how is this guy going to contribute? Maybe he's not going to be a big contributor, and he just blew all our expectations out of the water, right? Like, it's great. Tyler Boyd is a great story in what he's done this season, and again, I think he's earned the money. Again, he's a fighter. He's a trooper. He's a competitive guy, and like Greg Vanney said, when he did break his hand, like at one point, and he wanted to keep playing, it's like, how do you not play a guy like that, right? So it's like, regardless, like Tyler Boyd has everything for him, and I again want him to be back, expect him to be back, and get the bag, man. Go get that bag. Yeah. So yeah, Tyler Boyd definitely for sure. I'd want him back. Let's move on to the next one on this list. This is going to be an interesting one. Again, reading between the lines, it's probably not him not coming back. But Chicharito, this is going to be an interesting one. Of course, everybody was, which we'll get into Douglas Costa a little bit, but Douglas Costa, basically immediately leaves after the season. Some people were expecting the same thing with Chicharito, but I do expect the Galaxy to sort of, again, I don't think he's going to come back, but I think the Galaxy is going to think about this a little bit more than they did with Costa. But Chicharito, a guy who, when on the field, he's been a good player, has produced for the Galaxy, but again, injuries and him coming off of a big injury with an ACL. For you, I already know your answer, but what do you expect from Chicharito? I don't think he's going to come back, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's close at all. I don't think the Galaxy are really going to think about it. I think they're going to let his contract expire and get a new number nine, which his team needs. Greg Vanney has not gotten the opportunity yet, along with Will Kuntz, to sign a number nine. Like, Chicharito was one of the few players that was actually brought in before Greg Vanney was the head coach. And yeah, it's time for a new number nine. I do appreciate Chicharito when he was on the field. He turned things around. He was a good player. But, the age is starting to creep up, and his injury concern is always a really big problem. And yeah, it's time to go get a new number nine, a new hungry young number nine. And yeah, I'm expecting Chicharito to be gone.
Yeah, I mean, again, I do too. But again, we'll see what happens. I mean, again, for Chicharito, I hope, he looks good right now, like coming, like recovering and stuff like that. But just because you see videos of him working out and stuff doesn't mean that's going to really translate on the field, right? But yeah, I mean, yeah, Chicharito, I mean, in the beginning wasn't good for him. A lot of people did not like him here. A lot of people still don't like him. I don't know why. I don't know why he gets so much hate even after with some of the good things he's done. But yeah, beginning wasn't great. Then once Greg Vanney did, he had two good consecutive seasons, and this one just ended, unlucky with him. But yeah, I mean, I don't expect him to come back. Again, I appreciate what he's done. He was one of my favorite players growing up and still is one of my favorite players. But I mean, at the same time, I can't be biased about it and say like, oh, we should bring him back. But it just doesn't look like that's going to happen. And yeah, I mean, again, I appreciate Chicharito. I think he's like in the top 10 for most goals scored by a Galaxy player, right? Like, I think he is number 10. So it's like, so you can say he's had a somewhat of a good impact with the Galaxy, but again, other than that, like, I mean, still though, yeah, I don't think he's going to come back regardless, but I don't expect this to be out soon like Douglas Costa, but again, it's inevitable, I think, for sure. All right, then. Let's see who was next on this list. Michael Barrios. Yeah, this is a guy we traded during the season, had some good moments. Again, another veteran guy in this league. Played with a couple different clubs, and again, on the older side as well, but someone where I think, yeah, maybe you can bring back Michael Barrios. I mean, I don't know. We'll see for sure. I think this is also a situation where he doesn't have an option. He's just a straight up free agent. So we'll see how it goes right there. But yeah, how do you feel about Michael Barrios? Do you think we should bring him back?
Yeah, bring him back. I think he was a good piece for this team. He tried to make an impact. He was coming into a difficult situation right away. And yeah, I think he did his best. Obviously, he scored that headed goal versus Austin, which was really cool. He made some good impacts. And yeah, with a full preseason, a full chemistry, a full year of Greg Vanney, like, I think he can do really well. And I don't think he's going to demand a lot of money at this point in his career. I think it's a good piece to bring back if you can.
Yeah, I think so too. Again, I don't think I'd be too disappointed if he gets let go and we don't bring him back. But if we do, I wouldn't be mad about it either. I think he, like I said, he had some good moments. Another veteran player with the team. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be mad about it. But again, if they let him go, I guess thank you, Michael Barrios, for the few months you were here. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with Michael Barrios. Next one, Edwin Cerrillo, a player that we were high on when we traded for him during the season. A player who's young. When before he was here, he was starting with Dallas. Had some good moments with Dallas. Had some good moments here, but again, inevitably with the season, how it went, he had some bad moments as well. But I think definitely for sure, Edwin Cerrillo is one of those players you have to bring back, and would be a good depth piece behind Brugman once he's healthy. But yeah, I mean, I think you expect Edwin Cerrillo to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a player I want back too. It's a player that I was high on and I'm still high on right now. I think maybe towards the end of the season, Edwin Cedillo struggled a little bit, but I don't really think that was his fault. Like Ricky Puig was obviously out, Delgado was obviously out, and Edwin Cedillo was one of the most consistent players in that midfield and had to play with a lot of different pieces. He had Delgado, then he had Puig, then he had Rosell, then he had Aguirre. So it was just hard for Cedillo to get really used to somebody. But with a full preseason, a full healthy season, I think Cedillo can be a great piece for this team. I think he can actually be one of the best backup center defensive midfielders in the league. And yeah, if you can bring him back, it sounds like he really wants to come back. That's a great piece to have. And yeah, a piece I'm still looking forward to having if he does stay.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, that to me that seems like a piece that when we traded for him, it's him for him to stay here for a good amount of time. So I do expect Edwin Cerrillo to be back. And again, I would be surprised if the Galaxy do let him go. Right? Like that'd be a surprise for me. But yeah, Edwin Cerrillo, I definitely think is still a good piece for this team, and not even only just a good piece. I think he'd be a great piece for this team, being a pretty good backup behind Brugman. But yeah, definitely for sure, Edwin Cerrillo is a player that I would want back as well. And the final one, which has already been decided, Douglas Costa has already left the LA Galaxy. They've mutually parted ways. That was announced on Monday, and it was really quick. Like we've mentioned, we played on Saturday. A couple days later, decided, hey, we've mutually parted ways. And it was funny because like 2 hours before they had the exit interviews, he's like, oh, like we're gonna see what's best for my family. And then 2 hours later, yeah, I'm gone. So yeah, Douglas Costa is officially gone. Has some interest in Saudi Arabia and also Juventus, which is interesting. But yeah, I mean, we knew this was going to happen. I didn't expect it to be this quick. I thought it was going to be another, sort of situation where we kind of think about it because of how he's performed lately. But yeah, Douglas Costa leaves. I don't think you're disappointed about it, but are you sort of surprised that it happened so quick?
Yeah, I'm very surprised it happened so quick. Like between Chicharito and Douglas Costa, I've always said Douglas Costa was the DP a lot more likely to come back because he did not suffer a season-ending major injury, and he offered a lot to this team in the second half of the season. Very good corner kicks, very good distribution, and it was a piece I would have considered bringing back on a like high TAM level tier. Definitely not a DP because he's not reliable enough, but it sounds like that wasn't best for him. That's not the direction he wanted to go, and he decided to leave, and that's good for him. That's what he decided to do. So good luck to Douglas Costa. But yeah, the DPs do need a major sort of shakeup next season, and I'm glad it's starting already.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I was surprised too that it happened so quick, but also when you think about it a little bit, again, when you look at the winger position, you have Fagundes, you expect Tyler Boyd to come back. Again, if you have the young pieces like Johnny Perez and, if you re-sign Gino Vivi, you have him as a young piece. The experienced piece like Michael Barrios, right? If you bring him back, like so, it did make sense because of our wingers were, I guess, more situated than has in past seasons, right? So you look at that. You still look at the negatives that Costa brought, which was all the BS with him taking a vacation on suspension, him fighting people, him all that stuff that we were talking about, right? You look at all that, and also let's also not forget that in the beginning of the season, there was rumors of him possibly going back to Gremio and him leaving the Galaxy, right? So that idea of him leaving was already there. So like when you add all that together, I think it makes it less surprising, but it's still pretty surprising considering what he's done recently, right? Like I expected like at least maybe a couple weeks to think about it, but no, it just happened in a couple hours and Douglas Costa's gone.
Yeah, it told me more that he was playing really well the second half of the season. Not really because he loved the Galaxy and wanted to prove that he's earned a new contract there. I think he played well just to get a new contract somewhere else. Maybe that happens with a lot of players.
Yeah, I mean that's true. He was playing for a contract. Like I mean, I think that was his motivation, playing for a contract, whether it was with the Galaxy or not. But yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, he showed out, he balled out, but at the end of the day, we part ways, and I don't think people are mad about it, considering all the BS that he's done. But you know, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It was funny. Someone had even like on on social media. It was like, oh, what would you give Douglas Costa's scale from 1 to 10 with his like time here with the Galaxy? I'd probably give him like a 4 or 5. I don't know what you'd give him on the scale.
I'd probably give him a 6. Probably not just because of the way he played the second half of the season, but even last season, like during that 10-game stretch where, in my opinion, it was the best stretch of Galaxy soccer since they won the MLS Cup in 2022. And yeah, Douglas Costa was a huge piece in that. And obviously, he did score the penalty kick that sent us to the playoffs. And earlier in that game, we did miss a penalty kick. So he stepped up for us in a big moment that season. And he's done some other things well, like the corner kicks, the free kicks, some distribution. But yeah, overall, his consistency and staying on the field was a massive issue, which can't make me go up to a 7, but I'd say at least a 6. I think a 4 is a little bit low.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I'd probably put him at 5. I'd probably put him at 5 more than 4. Like I think again, a lot of the bullshit was just pretty bad from him. But yeah, I mean, he had some moments. I mean, this season was good for him, or at least the second half was good for him, and then also the second half of last season, like you said, right? Like he was a contributing factor when we made it into the playoffs, even put us into the playoffs, right? So yeah, I'd say a 5 is reasonable for Douglas Costa. You know, half and half, I guess. But I guess you can say he had one good, like in total, one good season, one bad season, whether if you combined it, right? So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, Costa's gone. Whatever he does, we wish him the best. And if he gets the bag in the Saudi league, good for him and his family. If he goes back to Juve again, good for his family. Wants to have a redemption arc in Gremio, good for him as well. So like whatever he does is good for him. But anyways, yeah, that's all the contracts that are expiring, and our thoughts of who we should bring back in 2024. Another thing as well, like not player wise, but of course we were taught I guess the conversation was Vanny as well in the offseason. Would we bring him back, or was there a possibility of him getting fired? He looks like he's coming back. The front office trusts him for next season. Again, a lot of Vanny out during this second half of the season. What are your thoughts about bringing Vanny back? Do you think this was the right decision for the team?
Yeah, I do, because let's face it, in 2022, when we were fully healthy during that 10-game stretch, that was the best Galaxy soccer we've ever seen from any Galaxy team since they won the Cup. And, we had the pieces in place, we had the help in place, we had everything going for us, and you saw the team he built and the team he coached this season. I mean, there's a lot of things that happened that weren't really in his control, that like the boycott, all the injuries, the suspensions from players, just everything really. It was just kind of a mess this year. And, I mean, we missed the playoffs. It was a failure. I think it's a failure on his part too. Vanny didn't have a great year either, even for what he did and what he had. He didn't make the most out of it. But, like we talked about it, some of the pieces on this team were just not very good. And yeah, we need to bring in some better pieces. And there's not really much he could have done at this point with like some of the defenders we had, some of the lack of attacking options we had, especially with Ricky Pucha. I think that was a huge thing too, which kind of ended our season. And yeah, I mean, Vanny is kind of on the hot seat next year. He does have higher expectations to at least get back to the playoffs, but we'll see with a fully healthy roster what he can do. But yeah, he's definitely on the hot seat next year. If he doesn't do well next year, I think he should be let go. But I do think he has earned the right to at least come back another season, because this year wasn't really his fault that much.
Right. Yeah, definitely going to be on the hot seat next season. No question about it. Um, Before I will say I did agree with him coming back, but I would want to say, like, from another perspective, for I guess the guys who wanted Vanny out, and I think I talked about it a couple weeks ago. I was like, I don't think it was. I wasn't on the Vanny out train, but I don't think it would have been a terrible idea if you would have let him go this season. Considering, like you said, we've talked about some of the management decisions that he's made. And just him bringing, like, and think about it this way too, because like my brother, like me and my brother always have this conversation about Vanny, because he's a very Vanny out guy. He always talks about, like, think about how many players Vanny has brought in. There's moments where we haven't been successful. I mean, you can even list off like the French Connection, right, with like all the French guys, right? Like that was a total failure. You think about all the guys he's brought in, and again, like I said this a couple weeks ago, like you have a new front office. You have 17 players out of contract, so you're going to have, whether you bring some of those guys back. So there's going to be somewhat of a little bit of a rebuild in a sense. Again, yeah, so you new front office, new players. At that rate, why don't you just go for a new head coach, right? Like that could have been an idea for the Galaxy. And again, like those were reasonable ideas, I think, for Vanny to be, I guess, fired after this season. But I do agree with that a lot of this wasn't in his control. The boycott wasn't in his control. What do you expect him to do? Felt a lot of pressure on that. about answering about the whole Chris Klein thing. The injuries. I mean, again, a lot of people say, well, injuries only affect you to a certain point. Yeah, but when you have literally almost like half your team on injuries, whether they missed a season or they're playing on injuries, it does affect you. Like I mean, like I said in the beginning, if you give a guy a rusty screwdriver to fix your tire, what do you expect the guy to do? Like it's the same thing with Vanny. It's like, what do you expect the guy to do, right? So it's like, I do agree on that aspect, like of bringing back Vanny. Like I don't think it's fair enough to fire him after all that's happened, but yeah, I mean, again, Vanny's going to be on the hot seat for sure going into next season, but I do have a little bit more faith him working with Will Kuntz and see who we bring in. And yeah, I mean, of course, Vanny's going to be on the hot seat, but I expect him to do good.
I mean, I know it is the media, but the players have said nothing about positive things about Greg Vanny. Even Ricky Puig has pointed out how much he likes him as a manager and how well he treats him. So it seems like the players do have that level of respect for him. It seems like it's more of a fan thing where they don't like him as much.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Like, and I think that's the most important part. It's like, yeah, you may not like him, but the players do. Like the players definitely for sure like Greg Vanny and like you said, Ricky Puig. Not, I think he said like not only does he appreciate him like on the field, but even off the field, right? Like he's helped them things off the field as well. So like, yeah, Vanny is like a guy who understands these players. I mean, he was a player himself in this league and has been around the league for so many years. It's like, yeah, it's like you have that trust in him. You have the trust from players to coach, and yeah, like they do expect them to be a good team next season if everything's in place, right, with the players and nobody gets injured, hopefully, next season. But yeah, I mean, again, people like Vanny, and you know what, for me, like I said, although he's had some questionable things, I'm behind Vanny. I think let's see what he can do next season, but there will be a point if he doesn't exceed expectations, then yeah, we do have to let him go for sure.
Yeah, I think his main defense this year is just his team on the field was just not good enough all around when you look at it. Like, that's what kind of tried to tell people. It's like, this Galaxy team we saw the past, like, 5 to 6 weeks, if we had that team going into preseason, where would the experts predict us to finish, and where would we predict us to finish? Probably, like, 13th or 14th place. Probably 14th place, actually, when you saw the team we had on the field over recent weeks. It's like, we just don't have the players right now or the pieces to really build the team that we want to build. And, yeah, we've got to get guys healthy, and we also got to have a big transfer window coming up.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And yeah, funny you mentioned that. Like, going into this season, Tom Bogert had us at like first place in the Western Conference, which was insane.
I mean, look at it though. Like last season, we ended the season super good. We gave a great fight against the champions. We had a great 10 game stretch. We were playing great football all around. It's reasonable to think if we brought the same team back, it's like they would click. But
Oh yeah,
just so much went wrong during the season. It's like it just couldn't come together. But next year has to be hopefully a better year.
no, yeah, definitely for sure. Like I think me and you going to the season said like, yeah, this team was going to be able to compete with what we had in 2022. But yeah, it just didn't come together with everything that happened. But yeah, going to be a big transfer window, going to be a big off season, definitely for sure. And the players know that, the coaching staff knows that, and they're going to need to do everything that they can to make this team a competitive team and hopefully a championship level team. Um, Speaking of which, there were some rumors, because I just remembered right now, there were some rumors of possibly, and we've heard this name before, Isco, possibly joining the LA Galaxy or maybe coming into MLS. We've heard that before. Actually, this going into this season, right during the winter, the last winter transfer window, that him possibly coming in. Yeah, Isco right now is actually playing good in La Liga. If you bring him in, I don't think that's a winner. Transfer. I think that's more of a summer transfer, but I don't know. We'll see. But again, they brought Isco's name again up in the I guess the names that the Galaxy could bring. Do you think that's a guy that could come in to the Galaxy next season?
Yeah, like you said, his contract's up in the summertime, so you wouldn't get him in preseason. And just a guy, honestly, I don't really want. He's on the aging side of things. He is injury prone, and he's one of those players to me where it's like, once his prime runs out, it's really going to run out. It's not like a Yoshida or Billy Sharp where they're still really good at an old age. His prime is going to like come to an end. He's really not going to make much of an impact when his prime runs out. And yeah, he has a little bit left. He is playing well in La Liga right now, but it's just not really a winning move. The type of DPs I like to see are just guys that are like younger, like 26, 27 years old, in their prime of their career, like really want to be here, really make that big impact for a long time. That's the type of guy we need, not really another aging European type of player.
Yeah, definitely. And again, that the DPS are going to be so important this offseason too. And yeah, I don't expect him to come to winter if the Galaxy do consider him, but I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see what you do with those DPS. it will be interesting to see what happens with the salary cap and the roster regulations, because of course there's the whole rumor that it's going to possibly raise the money, another DP spot, and I mean we'll see what happens there because that's going to be interesting as well. But I don't know. I mean, going into the offseason, again, having Will Kuntz and having Greg Vanney now together, and although Will Kuntz isn't technically the GM, but him making the deals and and helping Greg Vanney in acquiring these players, I think is going to be a massive step up too. I don't think we'll see bad contracts. I don't think that we'll be seeing those aging European stars, and who knows, maybe we do get one of those players that are in their prime. But
I mean,
I don't know.
AG
We'll
is
see.
still the ownership, though. That's the thing. Like, it's what you
It's
always
true.
got to worry about. Like, they close, they wanted to bring in Santi Jimenez as our starting striker in 2020, and look what he's doing right now. But instead, we got Chicharito,
Scored a brace in the Champions League. I mean, he's doing great.
one of the best
Um,
young strikers in the world, honestly.
yeah, honestly, he's been phenomenal, and I'm glad he plays for Mexico. That's for sure. But yeah, I mean, still though, yeah, we'll see what AEG does, how everything operates. But if like they say that they're trusting in Vanny's vision and trusting in the team in the front office, then I'm hoping that we do the great moves. But yeah, we'll see what happens during the offseason, what comes up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Greg Vanney mentioned in his press conference that him and Will Kuntz had a great connection. They had some players' targets in mind that they were going to bring into this team, and it sounds like he's very confident in the technical directing staff about the scouts, about everything. It sounds like he said it's as strong as it's ever been. His time here, it's as strong as it's been in years, and yeah, Vanney made it sound really good. So we got to see what happens, and if hopefully they have a plan in place and they get it, worked straight away because that's what we need. We need players in here not only when the season starts, but also before the season starts in preseason. We need to have that chemistry in here to really build a good team.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Because going into this season, right? We also talked about like how we didn't get a lot of players in preseason. So hopefully that does changes, and we get guys in preseason and get everybody in the off season situated. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Will be interesting for 2024 for sure. And yeah, we'll see what happens. But I think I'm good. I don't know if you have any other points, or unless you want to finish off the episode.
Yeah, you want to talk about what we would do with the DP spots if you want that are open, or
Oh yeah, that would be good. Be a good one before we leave. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, we're gonna have DP spots open, like we said, and yeah, we let go of a winger. We're gonna let go of a striker. I mean, I guess I'll ask you first. I mean, what position would you want to go after with those spots?
yeah, definitely like you just said, a winger and a striker, right? Chicharito's leaving. We're gonna have to bring in another really high caliber striker, someone who's young and motivated would be really good. And yeah, another winger would be great too. To pair with Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd, if he comes back, a great X factor. But to bring in another high level winger would be amazing, like a Christian Pavone caliber player, someone who's young, someone who's motivated, someone who is here was quality, was fantastic. That's someone we need right there, and that would be a great addition to this team if we can go find that out. And yeah, another number nine would be great too. And number nine who scores a lot of goals, who can start games, who's not injury prone, who's plays at a really high level, who's valued high. And yeah, I think those would be great pieces to this team. But AG is going to have to write some checks to get those guys because great players are not cheap. But I do know AG has the money to do that. Now it's just about getting that in place and not going towards the older European route when it comes to these DPs.
Yeah, definitely for sure. I will say nine, definitely for sure. Striker is going to be an essential part. I maybe not another. Yeah, I'd probably say another winger as well. I was going to say midfield, but maybe not midfield. Just considering we already have Puig, and I think our midfield, once it's healthy, will be all right. Maybe you could get a high TAM level midfielder to make that midfield a little better, but I think we'll.
Something else at the midfield actually last year when you're done.
Yeah, definitely for sure. But yeah, so we'll see what we do with that part. If we do get a third DP spot, considering the whole, like I said, if the roster regulations change, I would like to see it, and I think we mentioned this before. Would like to see a DP center back as well, something in the defense, because I think with how we saw this defense, we need to invest in it. And if you're able to get a DP center back, I think that's going to be pretty big. Because like we said, this team could be good if they just have a solid defense. They don't even have to have a top tier defense, just a solid defense, unlike this season, right? So, but still though, if you get a high caliber defensive player, I think that's going to be good. And I hate it when people say like, "Oh, why would you spend money on a DP?" It's like, why wouldn't you? I mean, why would you spend money on a defender? I said DP. Obviously, you'd spend money on a DP, but like, why would you spend money on a defender for a DP spot? Like, I would if that's our problem. But yeah, that's another position I would like to see if we get an
Yeah,
opportunity.
definitely. But the MLS salary cap has to be extended for that, and that hasn't happened yet. So right now, it's not in the possibility. But if that happens, absolutely, I agree. We need to bring in a DP center back, and I think that'd be great for everybody. Yoshida talked about it that he needs a consistent partner there, and I totally agree with him. I don't think this would affect Jalen Neal at all either. He would still get plenty of game time, plenty of opportunities, plenty of rotation. International call-ups, injuries always happen, so it's not going to affect Jalen Neal. He's still going to get plenty of game time if we bring in a DP center back, and yeah, I think that'd be great, really, if you have Aude, a DP center back, Yoshida, Caligari once he's healthy, and either Bond or Mikovic. It's not a great defensive team, but it's better for sure. I'd say it's at least league average, and even like you just said, a league average defense for us would go just a far way, especially if our attacking DPs can be these really good players. So yeah, we got to wait and see what happens. But yeah, the DP center back would be great if MLS adds that extra spot.
Yeah, hopefully they do, but I mean they kind of have to, right? Like with the whole Messi thing, it's like with Messi coming in here, that just changes everything. I mean everybody's been talking about that, but
I mean, it's
definitely
good
for
for us
sure.
though if they do, for
I
sure.
mean it is good for us, but that's also which is another thing though when it comes into the off season. Like if we do get this like salary cap bump up, now we got to compete with the Miamis, the LAFCs, the Seattles, like them getting extra money too. It's like yeah, it's like that's also going to be another thing that we got to account for as well. We got to compete with these top tier clubs, right? So it's like there are just so many things that need to go right in our way. But again, I do have some confidence with our front office at least this season. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But it is going to be competitive. It's going to be a competitive in the off season as well when it comes to going against up against these teams. Sorry, I just stuttered there. But yeah, definitely for sure. We'll see what happens. But yeah. You have any other points? I don't think I really have much of points.
Yeah, my last point is like, what are we gonna do with Dejan Jovic? Like you saw in the summertime, Dejan Jovic accepted an offer from Turkey. He didn't look like he was very happy here. He was very frustrated. It sounds like he kind of wanted to move on. And then you see he plays a little bit better in the starting lineup lately when kind of the games are meaningless. But he did score a little bit more, especially with two strikers. We found a success formula for him at least for the time being. And does Dejan Jovic come back? Does he not? Like I don't know really. And if he does not come back, the U22 DP spot I would use is actually on a number 8. I would bring in a center midfielder to back up Delgado. Because I think with the midfield, it's like, okay, like Fagundes is the backup for Ricky Pooch. Sadio's going to be the backup for Brugman, but who's the backup for Delgado in that number 8 spot? It's like, you can bring in an extremely interesting player in that spot right there. And I think that'd be really good for this team. And like with that U22 spot, if Dejan Jovic did leave, it's like, where else would you use that? It's like the defense is already super young. You do not want to use that there. The offense already has so many pieces. Maybe you could bring in another striker, but I don't know. I'd probably rather just bring in a backup striker the next year. And the wingers, obviously, we have a ton of wingers now. We don't really need to adjust that. So a number 8 position with the U22 spot, if Dejan Jovic did leave, I think would be great. But if Dejan Jovic stayed and can figure things out, I also don't think that's the worst solution either.
If that happens, I think that is a good idea. But in regards to me, if Dejan comes back, I think he comes back. I think he already says it that he expects to be back here. Yeah, it was frustrating for Dejan this season, and I think him accepting that offer was kind of in the heat of the moment. I feel like for Dejan, but I don't know because again, I think Dejan is still a very valuable piece. He's still a young player. Um, and yeah, this wasn't his best season as a starter, but if you play him right, with which we've seen him with a two striker system and with an experienced striker, he's good there. And just in general, just having that pressure off of him is going to be good. He can start over, and I think that's going to affect him as well. And I think he'll bump up his game like that. But yeah, I expect him to be back next season for sure. But if it doesn't go right, then maybe yeah, we move on from him in the summer, and we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I expect him to be back.
I mean, yeah, to be fair to Jovic, though, I don't think this season we didn't put him in the best positions to succeed in terms of formation, the way we tried to use him. It didn't really look right the whole time, and I feel like we figured something out towards kind of the end of the season with the two strikers, with the experienced striker starting and coming off the bench. He was still productive, like in Austin, and then against RSL, we saw some good things he did when put in the right situation. So maybe we just have to use him right. But still, he's kind of a difficult player to put in there if he's so one-dimensional.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And again, we'll see what we do with the striker spot in general. Do you bring Billy Sharp back in? What happens with Preston Judd and then just everything in general, right? So like that's also going to play in a factor, but I still do expect Dejan to be back here, regardless for just in general. Like I expect him to be back, but yeah, I mean again, it's going to be interesting just for all these positions, right? Just to see what happens, and especially with all these contracts expiring, like I don't want to say this team will look completely different next season, but it's a possibility that it could look completely different next season, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting for sure. But again, we got to play the right moves. Got to be, you know, I don't know. I was going to bring up an analogy. I can't even think of one. But point is, we just got to do good in this offseason, and hopefully we play our cards right. That's the one I was going for. We play our cards right, and yeah, like I said, we become a competitive team next season. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I think I'm good for this episode. I don't really have any other points. Again, if you have any other ones, you can say it right now. But I'm ready to close it out if you are.
Yep, so am I.
All right, then let's go for it. Can't thank you guys enough for this whole season, for tuning in and watching us now. It was a pretty big step up that we went from audio to video and, posting our episodes in video. Had a lot of interesting times doing video, a lot of technical difficulties, a lot of frustrations, but we did make it work. And we're here, and hopefully next season, this show gets better and we have more people here. And yeah, I mean, for those who just stick around with us the whole season, I mean, thank you. I mean, we don't, if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be doing this. But yeah, I mean, honestly, weird season, probably not the best season that we've had. But you know what? Like we said, just like the players and the coaching staff, we just got to turn this chapter and move on into 2024, which, hopefully is a much better year. But anything you want to say to the fans about this year and, our time doing the podcast?
Yeah, difficult year for sure. I'm sure we can all agree on that. Not the year we were looking for. A lot of injuries, a lot of stuff happening, really. It was challenging. It was tough to watch as a fan. Not what I was hoping for. But we got to remember 2022, where we went 10 games. Very good. And then we went to the playoffs. We played pretty well there, too. We were playing great football. That's the level I want to see this team get back to. I want to see them competing like that. I want to see them playing like that. I want to see them fighting like that. Even when they lose, they put up a great fight. They can find ways to get back into games. That's the type of team I want to see. And I think that's a team all of us want to see. And that's the level I want to get back to. But yeah, that's with the team. But in terms of this podcast, yeah, it's been a great year overall. We took a step forward with the video, like you said. And yeah, I mean, thank you for making this happen. It's been a great year with you. Very challenging, but I'm glad we got to do this together. And cheers.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It's always a pleasure with you having on this podcast for 3 seasons. Like, I mean, damn, we've been doing this for 3 seasons already. That's kind of crazy. Yes. And then, yeah, I mean, we're going to have season 4 next year. And yeah, I mean, obviously it'll be interesting to see what we do next season, but definitely for sure, we're going to try to make this better and more entertaining and just a overall better content and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll see where this goes. But again, we cannot thank you guys enough for being a part of it. I guess part of our lives in a sense, right? And tuning in, whether if you're a fan of the podcast or, on our respective pages on social media and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, we can't thank you guys enough for all the good stuff. So yeah. But anyways, that's going to do it for the episode. If you want to follow us on social media, go follow me at Insider Galaxy. Go follow LA Galaxy Central on IG. And yeah, go follow us there. We'll post some stuff in the off season and things like that and give you all the news and updates. But yeah, we're going to take at least a break from the podcast for a bit. And, once we get back in here, we're going to keep making more content. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Be a friend. Tell a friend about the podcast, whenever you're listening to this podcast. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Good off season in general. I mean, I don't know when we'll come back, but I guess, for the holidays coming up, happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays, whatever the stuff is, whenever we come back. But anyways, yeah, thank you guys for watching and listening. And we love you guys. Thank you.
7 words.